Hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm so glad you all joined me this evening, and I've got a very sort of amazing guest with us this evening. He is an ex-South African, all the way from over the pond in America, and he's traveled all around the world. And one of his destinations was Israel. Oh, I think I'm a bit loud for Gigi. Anyway, sorry guys, let me introduce you to Lloyd. Hello, Lloyd.
Hello, everybody.
Yes. So you still hear the South African accent?
A little bit.
A little bit.
It's a little bit. Very watered down.
Well, apparently we're having a bit of sound issues. What's wrong with the... How can we... Bear with us, people. Why is it...
My mic, your mic, which mic?
I don't know. I did this the other evening when we were streaming with MTV Me. So let's just find maybe this sounds better. Yes, okay, so let's get to it. You north, south, east, up in the town of correct me if I'm wrong, Jacobusdal?
Jacobsdal. Jacobsdal for the first part up until primary school somewhere, and then moved to Klerksdorp, Kletchville, as I like to call it.
Kletchville.
Kletchville, yeah.
Yeah.
And was there up until I finished high school, and then buggered off because the writing was on the wall about South Africa, and I only went back subsequently to do university, and that was it. The rest of the time I was predominantly overseas.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, and you don't miss us much, I take it?
Certain things, not a lot. Not a lot. Honestly, not a lot. Certain small things, yes, but you know, people in South Africa always just want to think braaivleis is like their thing. People barbecue and have barbecued like grilled meat on fire since yonks, you know, and it's all over the world. Yeah, so if you want to really have a barbecue and go to Brazil and compare how those guys do it. Like they kick up half a fucking cow on, you know, it's insane. So yeah. So small things like that, like South Africans really hold on to. It's like, mate, you get some good meat everywhere else too. But
okay, well that's good to know. All right. Yeah, if you come, Amy's here. Hi Brett, hi Brandon, hi Mr. Punisher. Yeah, so we've got a couple of viewers. All right, so Israel was your what country? Like in your range? Your what?
My first.
Oh, was it your first?
It was well.
Why was it your first?
My first alone country. You know, I obviously went overseas with my folks before. Dad took us to Mauritius and Maldives and wherever else. But I finished my scuba diving instructor straight out of high school, and I used the kibbutz system in Israel to my advantage. So I wanted somewhere where I can, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go and work at a kibbutz. You'll work half day, but you get food and you get accommodation for free. And then I'll use the rest of the time to look for work. And that's pretty much what I did. So I looked for a kibbutz closest to the Red Sea, which was Yotvata or Yotvata.
Okay.
Was there for a bit and got a job.
Okay, brilliant. All right. Yeah. So you land in Tel Aviv, right? Did you take El Al or SAA? LL. Okay. Flight good, all good. When you landed so what were your expectations? Like, did you think it was all going to be desert? Did you have any expectations? Had you heard something about it before?
Didn't have many expectations. Back in those days, you remember the New Rock shoes? Those big old fucking, you know, there was all the rave in South Africa. And so I was wearing them when I flew.
Okay. Wrong
shoes with a pair of denims when you land in Israel and it's hotter than, you know, the devil's nutsack. You know, it was a bad choice.
Okay. Which time of year did you go?
Oh, geez, I can't remember. I gotta check my passport for that. I mean,
Okay.
this is yonks ago.
Okay, yonks ago. Okay, so this is,
But
I think you said something 2001. So it's like 20, yeah, what's it? 20 years ago.
pretty much, yeah.
Sure.
It was a long ass time ago.
Sure. Like when I think of like 2000s, 19, I think it's like 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Wow.
Like people at my age.
Yeah. And I
All
was
right.
so I
Mm,
was so inexperienced traveling abroad that I remember there were three girls when I got to the kibbutz. Now this is traveling from Tel Aviv all the way down south in the same day after a long flight. I mean, I was spent. Like with my stupid New Rock shoes and the denim, and it's hot, and I'm fucking sweaty, and dragging all my luggage and shit. And I got to the kibbutz, and these three British girls, and they just greeted me. It's like, you're right. I didn't know how that's how they greeted. Like in South Africa, you ask somebody, "Are you okay?" if you fell out of a tree or you hurt yourself. Like, "Are you okay?" They're like, otherwise, that's not how we greet. So they say, "Hello, are you right? You okay?" And I'm like, "Why? Am I bleeding?" That was my literal reaction, and I was like, "Oh, okay, fuck. Oh, that didn't make any sense to me." So you can imagine how green I was rocking up to Israel. I really didn't have many expectations.
okay. Okay. And all right, your first night. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the food, right? Now you're not used to boerewors rolls and I don't know, pap in place of aardappelslaai. Now it's a completely different way of eating, right? It's very vegetarian at times. They do have turkey and chicken, beef, but it's rare. um, what was
Yeah, the kibbutz where I was at, the food was really good. I mean, it's a really
okay?
big kibbutz. They sell their products all over Israel. Um, a very big dairy. They've got a lot of dairy cows, or they had. I don't know if they still do. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of mango. They had mango plantations. They had date plantations. So they had a lot of volunteers, a lot of people working, many families on the kibbutz. So the food was on point. The
Okay,
food was pretty
awesome.
good. I didn't. There was no culture shock when it came to the food. Obviously, there were new things that I didn't know that I wasn't exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been a fussy eater, so I was just like, screw it. The one thing that did bite me in my ass back then. So I was on kibbutz for a little bit, and I was jonesing for a good burger and a milkshake because I love a milkshake.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are beer. You give me a strawberry milkshake, mate, and I'm happy. So so I went down to a lot, went to McDonald's.
And a lot is in the south. Yes.
Yes, forgot about the whole kosher stuff, and I'm expecting a good burger and a good milkshake. They give me the burger, but as soon as I tasted the milkshake, it was like a soy milkshake or some. It wasn't
All
milk.
right,
It
not
wasn't
milk.
a good
Yeah.
bloody milkshake. I almost started crying. It
Oh,
was terrible. That was one of that was a bad day.
I'm sorry, but I actually heard there's some that don't really keep like they'll like that. You obviously went into a more sort of religious idea because some places they don't know from religious. They don't know any laws. They don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard things like that. All right, so again, the people. Tell me about the people. Like, was it like you were scared to sort of be there? Was it sort of
No, no,
standoffish?
no. I mean, I know my mom and dad were worried at some point because, like I said before, a bunch of bombs and stuff started going off when I was there,
Okay.
which is always not,
From
you
where?
know, it's not
From how?
preferable. Um, So they bombed a few weddings. The Palestinians bombed a few weddings, and they bombed a pizzeria. I remember vividly when I was there. And just stuff like that. I mean, and those are only the ones that I remember. I'm sure there were
Mm.
maybe more on the news,
Mm.
but there
I
was a
remember
there was a
there was the Dolphin Square nightclub bombing in Tel Aviv. I remember that.
uh
And it was all
yeah.
our age. It was all people our own age that had like imagine like someone who was seriously but anyway, bombing a
And
nightclub. But I
buses. There,
mean,
there were there were a lot of buses, and the The problem is the Palestinians target civilians. They target, if they can kill any Jew, they're happy. Whereas, vice versa, the IDF, they just target specific buildings when it comes to, when they bomb Palestinians, when they bomb in Gaza. So it's that thing of they actively target civilians that made my parents, iffy. And there was a bombing in Tel Aviv at that point, but I wasn't close to Tel Aviv. But yeah. So that was the only real worry. As far as the people themselves, man, friendly. It's such a melting pot. There's so many people from all over the world that go to Israel that the local Israelis grow up with that being the norm. So they're very easy to go, hey, how you doing? Where you from? And just cut down a conversation, whether they're male or female, which makes it very easy just to meet people because they aren't very guarded. Whereas in South Africa, just walking up and having a convo with some stranger doesn't happen much. And I remember we were in a club, not a club, it's a pub in a lot called the Underground. I don't know if it's still there. If it's still there, what's up? And we were having a pub lunch. Nobody in the establishment. I think it was 3 or 4. I can't remember. Gorgeous Israeli girls walk in. Roughly about. They're so pretty. And there was nobody else in the pub. And they came in, stood around, sat over there for a second, and they got up and they come over to us like, "Hey, where are you guys from? Can we join you?" And I was just like, "This would never happen in South Africa."
Are you talking to me? Like,
yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah. And it's very laid back. It's very relaxed. There's no innuendo. And if they like you, they say, "Hey, look, we're going to this nightclub," and da 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 da. If they don't like you after 15 minutes, they go, "Hey, thank you very much. Have a good one," and off they go. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So the people were great. I really enjoyed it. Like I said in the previous chat that we had, when they travel overseas, they're much more guarded. But in Israel, nah, it was great.
Okay. So Brandon's like, I'm sold. And earlier to your milkshake comment, Amy's like, what's it? All the boys in the yard. What's that song? All right. So the people are friendly. Are there like you've said, there are people there from all sorts of cultures. Okay. Now, we grew up in apartheid here in South Africa, where I think towards the late 1990s, if you went to a private school, we might have seen one other person of color, at the school, especially if it was like a teacher's kid or a private, like I know I went to a private school. So there's that whole conspiracy, and you've heard it here the whole time and all over the world, Israel's an apartheid state. By you having experienced, I think, the majority of your life in apartheid, would you find Israel an apartheid state?
Look, anybody that says that are dumber than a tub of shit.
Okay.
Like, really, there's no two ways about it. Like they've got no clue what the fuck they're talking about. And the problem is people are too polite.
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Wait, hold that thought. Are you being paid to do this interview? Have I paid you or promised you anything in any way?
No, should I?
For you to say this?
Like,
are you Jewish?
No, I'm not Jewish.
Okay, you can continue. Right.
When I was there, I did a trip up to the Golan Heights, visit a couple of wineries, and there were a bunch of in the trip. There were a bunch of Muslim people that Muslim households that basically opened up their house and we went and drank coffee. Coffee is stupidly strong, like insane. It's nuts. In the small little shot glasses. I can't remember what I have to check in my diary. What kind of coffee or whatever it was, but
Turkish coffee, yeah.
At that point in time, also, I did not hear all the bullshit and all the propaganda that people say about Israel, all the misinformation. So to me, I just thought that was normal. there were a bunch of Muslim people living within Israel. Okay, fine, great. So I didn't think much of it. Only later on, after hearing all of this crap where, people go, oh, it's they equate it to segregation. I'm like, how can they equate it to segregation? There are like 2 million Muslims that live in Israel, within Israel. So how is it even closely similar? But they only want to focus on the small group that is within, Gaza, and compare, because there's a lot of restrictions on them, because they want to kill civilians, like I just said earlier. Like the rest of the Muslims that live within Israel, they're fine. You never hear any, some of them even join the Israeli army.
Yes, that's correct. The Arabs, they're in the Knesset. The Knesset is the parliament of Israel. In fact, I think one of the Supreme Court judges is an Arab. I think I may be corrected, but they tend to coexist quite well within Israel.
You see, but people don't know this, and people want to have this massive opinion, and they want to scream and shout at the top of their lungs, while they don't know their ass from their elbow about the topic at hand. Like it's again, I told you in the previous conversation that stupidity irritates me. And it's irritating hearing people talk when they don't know anything about it. If they haven't been there, even if they haven't seen the truckloads of aid that Israel sends to the Palestinians, if they don't know that Israel calls, the IDF calls ahead to a bunch of civilian cell phones, and they've got radio frequencies that they broadcast, like, hey, we're gonna bomb this building. If you're civilian, get the hell out of the way. What kind of warfare or enemy does this to? It's insane. But again, people don't know this. They don't want to listen. They go like, me. Yeah. So I actively try and sidestep the conversation when I see the person doesn't know anything about the topic.
Okay. So actually, I don't know if you've heard of Hanania Naftali. He's been Instagramming, and I don't know what else, Facebooking Israel news, but he just puts a short 4-minute video together just about everything that you've said. Do you mind if we play it?
I'm outside the most hypocritical place in Israel, the UN headquarters in Jerusalem. While they enjoy the security Israel provides, the democracy and peace, they, time and time again, attack the one and only Jewish state. The UN Human Rights Council just voted to launch a permanent investigation against Israel for alleged war crimes. Not just the recent war against the Hamas terror group in Gaza, they want to investigate Israel in general. They also called for an arms embargo against the Jewish state. Their obsession with Israel is reaching new heights. Before the investigation even began, they already accuse Israel. What do you want to investigate Israel for? For making phone calls to Gaza residents to warn them before striking at terror targets near them? For roof knocking on terror targets before striking it, just to make sure that no civilians are there? For transferring humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip during the operation for the sake of the Palestinians? For taking into our hospitals Palestinians from Gaza and treating them? Show me one army in the world that does that. Show me one. Israel cares for the Palestinians more than Hamas does and more than the Palestinian Authority does. They want to investigate my country for defending our civilians against vicious terrorists who target our families and children. Israel did everything in its power to avoid civilian casualties, while Hamas did everything in its power to cause civilian casualties. They fired rockets from civilian population. They hid behind their people. They store rockets inside civilian homes. Hamas is holding the people of Gaza as hostages. Hamas couldn't care less if Palestinians died in the process of attacking Israel. Of the 4,300 rockets it fired at Israel, it misfired 680 rockets that fell short inside the Gaza Strip and caused civilian casualties. But of course, Israel will be blamed for that, because my country is blamed for everything. It has become a trend. It's fashionable. Israel is one of the smallest countries in the world, but it is being treated like it's the world's biggest problem. If we are the problem, if we are the obstacle to peace, then how come we made 4 peace agreements with Arab countries in just 1 year? The Palestinian Authority refuses to negotiate with us, and Hamas is openly calling for our destruction. So what option do we have left? To sit back and watch terrorists targeting our civilians? Of course not. And to you, I say, stand on the right side of history. Because this battle is not just Israel's battle, it's yours too. Because if we don't stop them, they will come to your borders too. These terrorists' greatest ambition is to establish a radical Islamist nation worldwide. So supporting Israel is supporting your country, your security. Instead of pursuing justice, the UN is whitewashing the genocidal crimes of Hamas. Instead of fighting for the truth, the UN is fighting the truth. I was an IDF soldier. I fought Hamas in the Gaza Strip in 2014. I defended Israeli civilians from this murderous terrorist organization. If being a patriot is a war crime, please investigate me. If holding a weapon against terrorists in order to defend civilians, then please investigate me, because I have done that. Guys, we are living in dark times. I ask you to share this video. Let's bring the light to this world. Let's bring the truth.
Right. Sure. So that was a whole clump of information. Just a little bit about everything. Going from the UN, how the UN treats Israel, to what happens with aid, like Brett's been saying. Yeah. So there's all of that. And I see actually people have dropped off the stream, and that's fine. But yes, so this is the reality, how I see Israel. And I always say to South Africans, who say Israel's an apartheid state. I said, okay, have you been there? And they're like, no. So I'm like, well, then how do you know? So it gets me very emotional, because you don't know something until you've actually seen it, right? And lived it. And you've lived, how long were you there for?
It was less than a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember. 8 months, maybe 6 months,
Okay.
something like that.
But was anyone ever racist towards you for not being Israeli, or were you treated differently? Or look, I did hear 1 or 2 cases that there may have been incidents with like non-Jewish people, but you always get like minority stupid people in the like extreme regions of everything. Like what you were saying earlier about Israel being a melting pot, it definitely is. It's like South Africa in that way, or I suppose America or the UK,
Again, people want to be dumb. People really want to be dumb and blow shit out of proportion. There are people in every single country around the world that likes their people more than other people. Their customs, it's just tribalism. I mean, everybody wants to belong to a certain group, however that group is defined. And they want a group is better than the group next door, and it doesn't matter if that's defined by religion, ethnicity, geographical location. Like in Africa, you see it a lot. A tribe in this valley hates a tribe in that valley. Why? Because we just think we're better than them, so even geographical location plays a role. And then you go to sports teams. Fuck me blind. You see the guys beating the crap out of each other on, the soccer hooligans, because our club against their club. It's something stupid, inhuman. But there will be one guy in, you said Israel, let's use that example. One guy that dislikes whatever group of people. And that one that dude, it's his, then they go, oh, you see, there's racism in Israel. What? That happens in every country around the world, bar none.
And it happens,
the people in China hate everybody except the Chinese. I mean, in Malaysia, they literally, if you're Caucasian or Westerner, they charge you this much. And it's a known thing there. For them, it's okay. It's, then if you're Chinese, you still pay more than the average, but you pay a little bit less. And then, it goes down, down, down. And so I don't know. It's stupidity. People not thinking further than their nose and want to take things out of proportion. Like there's one person that has that opinion. That does not mean that the country as a whole, or there are laws that push that specific person's kind of
Narrative.
ultimatum. You know,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't happen that way. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. So Brett's very passionate about this topic. In fact, Brett's a historian come politician. He does a lot of politics on his channel. And he made a comment just now. Let me try and see if I can find it. That Christians apparently have more freedom in Israel than they do in any other Middle Eastern country. Also, LGBTQ have more freedom in Israel and than they do in any other Middle Eastern country.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. How many Jewish people are there in Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria? You know, and that they've all been either killed or displaced. There is one democracy in that whole region, and that's Israel. One place where Muslims can build their mosques and pray. Jewish can do the same. They can build. Christians can do the same. Baha'i, the faith of the Baha'i, their headquarters are in Israel. So the single democracy in that whole region, people wanna throw shit at. What I do not understand people's logic or thinking or anything. It's just like, man, shut up. Just shut up.
I love you, Lloyd. You are like so direct, so awesome. By the way, ladies and ladies, he's available.
No, stop. No, pump the brakes. Right there. No.
Sorry. Okay, I overstepped.
Uh-uh.
Did you go to Jerusalem? Are you a religious person? If I may ask.
I was brought up very religious. Folks are very religious, so I'm happy that I grew up with that. But yeah, that didn't give me any troubles in Israel.
Okay. No, and I mean, like, were you surprised? Like, you've got, so especially in the old city, and I think there's a picture of it now, you've got the four quarters, and they're right on top of each other. But everyone sort of, I mean, besides obviously the Al Aqsa Mosque when they've had their issues, but it's just crazy how you'll be at the Wailing Wall, and that wall is the boundary to like the Al Aqsa Mosque. Did you ever go under the tunnels? Like under the Jerusalem tunnels? Did you ever take a tour?
No.
Oh wait, it was before. I think it was before they just started excavating when I went in 2000 and when was it? 2004. They just sort of broken through on their.
No,
like,
I was there before that. I was
Yeah,
there before.
yeah,
I went to the biblical city of, oh no, I gotta remember. I can't remember what the name is.
Not
The Caesarea.
Oh right, okay.
So the trip that I took, that, you know, on the Golan Heights and all that kind of stuff, it kind of swung up and it went to Caesarea, and that was insane. So cool.
Why? What?
Just
Beautiful.
because of the they had these mosaics in all of the different rooms, and it's a big bloody room, right? It's a big area, and these mosaics are made up of pieces of granite, like, or marble, whatever the fuck it was, like this size, and they were perfectly square. So yeah, like I was just envisioning some poor schmuck sitting on his ass 2,000 years ago, because that's how old they are, just with a hammer and chisel, like. And imagine if he spends like 2 hours making one, and then he mucks it up right at the end. You know, like you know, like just the amount of work that went into. And they had these massive pillars that was brought in from Greece on vessels, on ships. I mean, these things, even today, it would be a significant job getting those things across the water and not having them break and, you know, chip and all. It was insane. It was really cool.
Okay. No, I think I mean I went on a birthright tour, and it was for 10 days. The only place we didn't get to see is Eilat, but Tel Aviv was like, wow. It was literally like cutting off half of, I guess, Manhattan or something and stretching it along the seaboard, and it never sleeps. Everything's always open. Everything's going. It's just such a vibe. It's everything's. I mean, and we walked through Jerusalem on the Sabbath. We went and did a bit of a tour. We weren't really allowed to, but we sort of snuck through and went through like the main street. And if there was a bomb there, they rebuild. They don't build a monument or a testament they just get on with life. They believe that life is best, and that's what they live for. They live for their luck to live. And
there have been so many wars in that part of the world. So the Greeks fought the Romans. Like I went to a castle where they still had this, like, the small sliver in this big thick wall, massive wall, where they've got this little sliver where the guys used to shoot arrows back in the day. The archers, when they thought, and they still had all of these Roman artifacts where they try to push up onto this. So I mean, I completely understand it, because there've been so many battles throughout the years for not only in Israel, but that whole stretch. So much history going on.
Yes,
that if you have to build a shrine or some kind of, it just would have been filled with monuments. There wouldn't be a place to build a house.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was literally the doorway to Asia, and between Africa and Europe, that everyone went through the Middle East. That's what people did.
Yeah. I went to a nightclub in Tel Aviv when I was there. And again, beautiful woman. Beautiful. So, I mean, the girls have to do, they have to go to the army, right? So the guys have to do.
Everyone does.
Yeah, the guys have to do a little bit longer than the girls, if I'm not mistaken. But everybody has to go. So they do PT with the guys, and they come out of the army looking like Greek goddesses, So
like Amazons.
Oh, my weak liver, it's terrible. Anyway, and we were in a nightclub, and as you do, I was much better in shape than what I am now. I recently had a knee surgery, like in December, so I racked up a bunch of weight. It's disgusting, but anyway, back then I wasn't exactly this and this and the Buddha belly, Buddha belly, and the man titties.
You were an eye candy to look at. Yes.
I wouldn't go that far, but anyway. So we're in a nightclub, and there's a girl smiling. I'm like, hey, how you doing? So the music's blaring. You're not really, but you're like, hey, and dance a little bit closer, and she gets a little bit closer, and whatever. And she turns around, and she had this like a massive gun on her back.
Right.
In the nightclub. Now, I mean, it's normal for that part of the world, but I wasn't used to it. I was confused and turned on at the same time. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Like, here's this hot babe. What was it? Was it what rifle was it? Do you know?
It was dark. It was big, and I had an awkward boner. So I let it be. I didn't know. It's
I remember
not.
when
Something.
you were there as well. Everyone carries their rifles with them all the time.
Yeah. And for good reason. Then at that point in time, there was a lot of knife attacks, and they would literally go for some old lady standing at a bus stop and start stabbing her. So shit like that. I could understand why they'd be carrying, but it was still very confusing. And you got to remember, it's dark, strobe lights are going, everybody's dancing. I'm like, hey, and then all of a sudden, like, what? And ooh, okay, I like it. I don't know why I like it. Why am I liking this? But anyway.
Yeah. It's definitely an unusual place. When I went, I mean, I was in and out, literally. Felt like a very short sex act, but it was completely. It was mind blowing, and I think everyone needs to put it on their bucket list. Hopefully, in 5-10 years' time, things will have calmed the hell down.
I don't know.
And things will be able to travel again, and it won't be so crazy, and the world won't be so scared of everything, and we can just get on with things.
Yeah, I definitely I would tell people to go there to kind of educate themselves on how it actually is, but then at the same time, man, the media needs to stop lying to people. Really.
Well, here in South Africa, we get no news of Israel, no true reporting on Israel. Thank God. There's obviously, I mean, there is Al Jazeera. I actually think they report quite well. I don't know. I get their news. But CNN and Sky are just, it's total bullshit. Total
Yeah,
bullshit.
it's very lopsided.
Mm.
And there's a guy I saw recently. Now I think there's two or 3 days ago, just by happenstance, where he goes, and he just, again, everything is Israel's fault, and his train of thought is because there's a power imbalance, and for some reason, that is reason enough. Oh, there's a power imbalance, and it's all Israel's fault. I mean, what the fuck do you mean? Like, there can be a big guy in a bar and a small guy in a bar, and the big guy in a bar, even though he's stronger and he might be more capable of a fight than the small guy. If the big guy is just minding his own business and the small guy is picking a fight, the small guy is at fault. And the same applies to when it comes to countries. Like, yes, Israel's has a lot more military might than Palestine. But what do they spend their money on? A bloody dome to just intercept the rockets that those little pricks, shoot over. Like, people,
They could nuke them in
really,
a second, and they don't.
yeah,
They
people
could take them
really
out.
don't think further than their nose.
Right.
It is just the popular narrative that they follow, instead of going, wait, hold on a second. So facts A, B, and C don't really support the narrative. So how does this work? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a horrible situation, and it's also so tiny. I mean, you spoke about east to west. How I think the smallest part is 1.4 kilometers wide at one point.
Yeah, that's the stretch of beach on the southern tip of Eilat, between Egypt and Jordan.
Okay.
It's a tiny little stretch, I think. Like, I'm not exactly sure if it's 1 point, whatever measurement you said, but I wouldn't be surprised, because it's a tiny place. But then at the same time, people, again, they don't know, and yet they want to have a massive opinion. How many times have there been an offer on the table that Israel has wholeheartedly agreed to? Well, the Palestinians just literally said no. I mean, I know of five different times where, and the last two, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted to give 95%, 94% of the disputed territory, along with Gaza, and they even sweetened the deal that Israel wanted to give, and they just said no. Like, every single time Israel comes to the table and said, look, let's just live peacefully, and every single time they say no. I mean, it's insane. From the first time being, what, 1936?
1948. No, well, Israel's independence. So little Israel. I mean, I went there in, what did I say, 2004, and I was like, yo, like, they had bus cards and telephone cards that we hadn't even gotten yet, and they were like little pieces of film. Like, they were first world country. Everything was basically automated, and this was in 2004. I mean, they already had, like, I think, Wi-Fi, right? Maybe not 2004, maybe 2000 and, yeah, actually Wi-Fi, I think. Like, everything was just smoothly running, everything worked. Okay, I know the bureaucracy when it comes to passports and papers and things can get a bit stuck. But they're just so jacked, and they're 70 years, 72, 73 years old since 1948. I mean, what country has grown and offers opportunity? I think their unemployment rate is like 3% or something. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
So, people, if you haven't been and you planning just for the whole cultural experience, for the religious experience, for the historical experience, to actually walk where King David or Solomon, or well, not King Solomon, but King David or Jesus or whoever you can think of walked. I mean, we also went up to Masada in the Dead Sea. I mean, the Dead Sea is just such a lach. It is just so much fun. We had so much fun there, and I loved it. And if I'd, you're always scared, oh, you got to go back home, but I would have moved there in a heartbeat. And then the next year I got married and had my kid. So that changed. But I was set on going, and I still am. I want my son to go and experience it in a few years.
Why are you living in South Africa versus Israel? Because there should be a pretty easy track for you to go there.
My mom is still here. I don't know what it's like. I need to do more investigation. I don't know how she would cope. Look, and I do know it's also it's not easy because they have a 6-day week, and you don't get, I mean, look, I have a pretty good life here. I have a very cushy job. I don't work weekends. I sit in an office all day. It's I'm a little bit nervous on what my life would be, but I think, God forbid, I've never had a gun pointed at me in South Africa. I mean, it's unknown. Like, I'm blessed. I've never had an experience to put me in the, okay, I'm leaving now.
Are you really going to wait until? Because in South Africa, it's not a question of. It's not a question of if in South Africa. It's a question of when. When. So, are you really going to wait until that point? Why do people do that? Why do people wait up until that point? That's also something I could never understand, because people are looking at me going, like, nothing as really bad has happened to you, seriously. But I'm like, why the fuck should I wait until something? And in that
you're
situation,
100% right. I suppose life's just happened to me. And like I said, it happened literally. So I went to Israel in July, and by January, December, I was expecting with my son. So it was kind of like, and we had plans to go to the UK, and that didn't turn out. A long story. But at the end of the day, I stayed, and my mom's here. But it is on the cards. It's definitely something I'd consider. I don't know what the heck I'd do in Israel, to be honest.
Brush up on your Hebrew a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, my Hebrew's definitely. But yeah, no, thank you. I think we've mostly covered everything. Sort of. It's actually no, we haven't touched on it so much.
Not even close. Not even close. I mean, there's so much. Like you said, people should go there and to see it for themselves. Like, yes, they should, but then if they can't do that, at least go and look at stuff like, the Peel Commission back in the day. It was 1936, where they came up with the Peel Commission was English, British. They came up with a two-state solution. Israel said yes. The Arabs said no. After that, it was the UN. The UN then came and said, okay, fine. Here's our proposition for a two-state solution. Israel said yes. The Palestinians said no. And then war broke out. And that wasn't the 6-Day War. That was the 1940 whatever fucking war. I don't know. There's a bunch. Then in 2000, what was it in 2000? 2000. The then minister went to Camp David.
No, it wasn't 2000. It was 1995, I think. The Oslo Accord.
No. I'm not talking about the Oslo Accord. I'm talking about the meeting between Ehud, the Prime Minister was then Ehud, and Yasser Arafat. That happened in Camp David. That when Bill Clinton was in the office, and they had talks and negotiations there. Israel. Basically, Bill Clinton afterwards said, and I quote, Yasser Arafat was there for 14 days and said no to everything. And one of the offers that the then Prime Minister said, he said, look, we'll give you everything in Gaza and 94% of the disputed territory in the West Bank. And they still said no. So, people should look into that. There was a fifth. People think, as far as I read, some people say there's been 7 times where Israel has gone and said, look, we offer you X, Y, and Z, and every time they just say no, 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 no. So one side is looking for peace, and the other one just doesn't give a shit and just wants to kill them because they're Jews. So people looking at that too. Don't just watch CNN, because CNN is a type of shit.
Yeah, no, they definitely have the wrong narrative, the wrong stick. But yes, also people can go and look up PragerU. There's some amazing, cool videos about, like, if Israel had to, basically their one show is that
I'm outside the most hypocritical place in Israel, the UN headquarters in Jerusalem.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, what was the the war in 1948, it was Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. Oh, sorry. Egypt and Iraq, all against Israel. So that was the war in 1940 back in something,
Isn't
1945.
wait. So I
I think it was 1947. I
okay.
think it was
Yes.
1947.
Yeah.
And then the 6-Day War,
Yeah.
which happened
1967.
a bunch of years after that, was basically the same. That was Egypt again, Lebanon again, Syria again, and that whole area just because
And they chose the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. So there's one day a year, which is like us. I don't know, you can say Christmas, but it's not Christmas. We don't feast. We fast for 25 hours and you don't touch food. You just, it's a
what's that,
very
Yom
holy spiritual
Kippur?
day. Yes, Yom Kippur.
Okay.
And you don't, and they chose that day to start a war. So yeah.
Yeah, but even that, like even the taking a step back and realizing, look, if you live in a Muslim country, the chances are that those countries have Sharia law. The chances are that those countries don't have a lot of, like women's rights. They don't give a lot of rights to any other religion. Apostasy is illegal, So apostasy, if you want to leave the religion, it's not allowed. All of that kind of shit. So that whole area belongs to the Muslims, but the one sliver where people can actually, like we said before, be free and have the democracy and people have a problem with. And it's all about the marketing. It's all about stupid CNN and just the narrative that they spin. So yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
No, so it's very hard, and then people. I mean, look. Let's a 70-year-old country cannot be without mistakes. I'm sure they've made mistakes, but their right to. I just feel like, what do people expect? Like, every country has a nation, or every nation has a country, right? So surely, my son said to me the other day, he said, if you could go back in time, what would you wish to do? And I said, well, maybe I'd go back in time and make sure Hitler wasn't born. And then I thought to myself, yes, but if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have the state of Israel. Because those events that took place in the Holocaust forced the world to realize that the Jews actually needed a homeland. Like, they had nowhere to go. They'd been dwelling amongst the nations for 2,000 years, if not longer.
Well, yeah, they were pushed out of that area because when Muhammad was born, I think Muhammad was born in the year 570, and after in the year, I don't know, as I think he started writing the religion of Islam around 600, but as it grew, they pushed all of the Christians and the Jews basically out. So again, what people don't know is back in the day, if you weren't Muslim, you were seen as dhimmi, which is like a second-class citizen, and you had to pay the jizya, which was a tax. You were taxed to live in in where you were born, just because you were either Christian or Jewish. And again, people think that the star is to identify Jews as a Nazi thing. It's not. It was actually started back then by, I can't remember the dude's name, but that is how they identified if a Jew has paid his taxes, and a Christian was given what was called a zonah. It's basically a belt, a blue belt, which is either around the waist or around the arm, to again signify that, oh, he's paid his taxes, he's allowed to live here, otherwise you're going to be killed. So with that, with Islam growing and spreading, and either you convert or die kind of mentality, pushed them further and further away. And as Islam continued to spread, they, in the caliphate grew. They went into all the way up to Eastern Europe. They took Spain, renamed Spain to Andalusia. So that whole area was just taken up, and where was the Jews supposed to go? So yeah, I mean, again, stupid question. So you don't like Israel? What, do you think the Jews should just die? Is that your fucking 10
Most
cents?
people would say yes. Most people would. A lot of what the rise of anti-Semitism in this country in the last, what I've seen in the last few months, in the last 3 years is actually scary.
I've got a buddy that I met here in the States. He lives in Nam. And he's all anti-Jewish, and I'm like, but dude, why? And he couldn't give me an answer. He only said, oh yeah, look, because they are actually this clan or this group. And I was like, okay, fine. So that might be right, that might be wrong, but that doesn't prove anything. So they might be this group. So what? Oh, they control the world and they're this. I'm like, you're a tinfoil motherfucker. This is what you are. You're a tinfoil crazy nut. Like, seriously, stop this bullshit. But in their own mind, everybody here is up in arms when it comes to racism, but it's the racism that they deem as being okay that they justify to themselves, like, oh yeah, no, this is okay. It's okay to, it's okay to hate white men. It's okay to, not dislike Jews. It's like you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. I don't know. It's just, again, the irritation levels when I speak to these people, it just make me go, you're dumb, don't talk to me, go jump off a bridge.
Alrighty. So, well, I think sorry, I'm now laughing because it's so basic, but we're so dumbed by our misgivings and our judgments and our crap. People are people. In fact, what's great about genetic testing now is that you can prove, no matter what you look like, that you might actually be part whatever, and you wouldn't expect it to be, but you are, and it changes your entire narrative of how you think about the world, about yourself, about where you've come from. And I actually recommend that people do that. You go and have one of these tests to just wake yourself up, to get yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but what would achieve the same and kind of forego having to have that test?
Okay.
Just people learning actual accurate history. Like, people here in the States, I think we touched on the topic the other day. They just think of history in terms of American history. They don't realize, or they haven't been taught, or they're too stupid to connect the dots and go, hey, humans are a warring species. So because at one point in time in the very recent history, a certain group was a lot more effective in warfare and kicked your ancestors' ass, they won a war. This is 200 years ago. Build a bridge, get over it. It doesn't affect you. You're either going to wallow in your own self-pity or you're going to get over it. But they don't. Everything is, oh, America is bad and it's based on or it's built on racist, on slavery. Show me a country where there hasn't been slavery. Please. Show me a country where it has.
I remember, I love historical documentaries and movies and things. And apparently what I learned also in the last 6 months is that a lot of the people that were sent to America back already in the 1800s were a lot of Protestants, were sent from France to the Americas because they didn't fit in the norm of Catholicism.
Yeah, it's the same in South Africa with the Huguenots. That's why in South Africa you have so many French names. Duplessis, Dupria, because they fled France because they were being persecuted there because they didn't fit the norm of the then popular Christianity. So I mean, yeah, again, people don't. Why do we have to explain this? Why don't you know this? Why don't you know the simplest of simple facts of human history? It's ridiculous.
No, but and then you get tinfoil hats and they say no, but well, it's not only tinfoil hats, but I mean, people say that the victors of the war write the history. So it's also not necessarily.
They don't know how scientists work. They don't know how historians work. They don't just take into account one civilization's portrayal of what happened or account of what happened. If something happens, let's take a certain part of the world.
There's a ripple effect.
There's a ripple effect, and the countries and like warlords or whatever the groups around also document, like, oh, okay, in the year this and this and this, our neighbor X and X was overthrown by this and this and this. So that's how they try and collaborate. My English is kind of Afrikaans to English is still kind of a problem a little bit because my first language is Afrikaans. But that's how they confirm that this happened. So if people say that, again, it's a very one-dimensional way of looking at something. So, oh yeah, that might make sense to dum-dums, but as soon as you dig a little bit deeper, think a little bit further than your nose, or even just Google, you go, oh, okay, fine, that assumption is not really true.
Yeah, I think also one of the biggest regrets for me in history was the basic defeat and distraction and non-existence of the Red Indian. I mean, I know it sounds, I mean, we're totally off topic here, but I just think they had so many secrets. Like they might have the absolute cure to cancer, or, I think they were so spiritual and so advanced in an esoteric way.
When you say the Red Indian, you specify a little bit, because the Indian tribes here are so diverse that you've got the Pawnee, the Chippewa, the Cherokee. You've got so many different little clans.
Sure. But I mean that they were basically wiped off, like near extinction. They were.
Maybe. I don't know what the lowest point of the population density or population numbers were at one point in time. So that might be so, but because I know that when the French came here, in whatever year, they went up a bunch of river systems and they documented the numbers that were there. But because the Europeans were exposed to a bunch of sicknesses and ailments, and that they weren't, the next time the French went up, the numbers basically halved because everybody died of chickenpox or like something like that.
Measles,
but painting them out to be this, call it innocent victim of a war, is also not true. I mean, they used to kill each other wholesale. They
well, it's same like the African tribes for sure.
Yeah. But now they want to have reparations. Like, okay, you, the Pawnee or the Chippewa or whoever group, are you going to pay reparations to the tribes that you killed? Because you had wars with them where you killed everybody wholesale. And again, this is common knowledge basically, that the only people that they would spare in a raid would be children younger than the age of, I think it was like 3 or 4 or 5, because they could be taken and integrated into their tribe. Everybody else was killed. Women, children, old people, grannies, doesn't matter. You're dead. And that's the difference again also between conquering and colonizing. People go on and on and on about colonization. Hey, buttercups, before colonization, there was conquering. Go and have a look at the characteristics of that. Just look at Genghis Khan and what they did. That's conquering. Every single country conquered before they realized, or the theory was kind of slapped together, that let's view the people as a commodity. So let's kind of work with them, build schools, build infrastructure, build trains, that whole 9 yards. So, oh my God, colonization. And dude, before that, people were much worse. So we are a warring species is the bottom line. And we've been cutting people's, like, since since the I don't say in induction or inception of Islam, up until the end of the caliphate. So the caliphate was.
I'll Google it. No, I'll Google it quickly. Hold on.
It was 1,400
Someone in
years.
the comments.
1,400 years is how long the caliphate lasted, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And it was ended in 1924, I think it was, in Turkey. But anyway, long story short, in the caliphate, 270 million people at least were killed. This was before guns. This was with axes and spears and chopping people's fucking heads off and stuff, So people are, I mean, I don't know. Again, people don't connect the dots.
Everyone's homework is look up the caliphate. Khalifa. Let me just see. Claim caliphate authority from 1517. No, I've heard about it. I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but it's definitely something to look into.
If you want to Google it, type in Muslim caliphate with a C. Okay. Then it'll be a drop down and people can have a look.
Maybe you can come back some other time and we can do a whole show on that. But I don't exactly want to piss off. Trust me, I don't want to piss off any. I don't know. I just want to I know it's maybe a buttercup where you called me no, you didn't call me a buttercup, but I like the name. No, a sweet condensed chocolate cup. Yes. No. I just think, why do we have to label everyone and just not be able to get along? And yes, there are freaking dumb people out there, but
so many.
I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone.
You see, but you're right. In a sense, that would be the easiest way. But if you just leave people alone, then this kind of prevailing sentiment that is the incorrect sentiment kind of just keeps growing because they're not going to leave people alone. They're going to keep spewing their bullshit. So at some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand and go, no, this is not. Look, the sky is blue, the grass is green. This is history. This happened, whether you like it or not, whether it fits into your little
narrative,
biased, thing that you got going on or not. I don't care. This is how it is. So, no, at some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand. It's similar to South Africa, and people don't know this in the international community. And the whole thing with sangomas. Now, for any international people, a sangoma is what terminology is that the Southern Africans use for witch doctors. Now, in South Africa, you grow up knowing about muti killings. Now, a sangoma makes an ointment. The ointment is called a muti. And they still believe that human pieces, human parts are to be used in some mutis. So they chop up babies. They kidnap women and cut up like their pregnant women and cut their stomachs open to get to the organs of the embryos. Like that kind of shit happens in South Africa, and we grow up knowing about this, right? And then it's been their defense for this has been for a while that if you draw a line in the sand and you say that is bullshit, apparently you're racist because that's their customs and their traditions. I mean, I'm sure you heard of that retort, that rebuttal. I'm like, oh, you can't say that because that's racist, because that's our tradition. Mate, if your tradition is chopping up babies to make a fucking foot ointment, screw you and screw your tradition. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, there at some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand, grow a bit of a backbone, and go, no, that's not how it is. I'm not going to be accepting that. That's not cricket, mate.
And I mean, there's also look at the whole rhino horn thing, the whole muti rhino horn mission. I mean, they keep wiping out our, I mean, if they could stew giraffe, I mean, even our giraffes are becoming under threat now because of a Far Eastern belief that these things make them hard. But yeah, I think you must come back and we can talk all about that. I'm looking at the time, and tonight is a school night.
Yeah, I don't mind, mate. Like it's fine. We can have a chat sometime in the future if you want to.
I think we should think about like something to like topics, and then and then decide we're gonna only do. And I'll do some research because I know little bits about a lot of things, but not too much on one particular topic. Like I need to research it and I need to do my homework. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been in a kind of fortunate / unfortunate position where a lot of people ask me stuff about South Africa, or just stuff in general about my travels, and I haven't always been able to answer. But since within my travels, the more people ask me this, the more I go, man, I should probably find out some stuff about this, because people keep asking me about this stuff. And then at the same sense, we grow up in South Africa, we know about the Muti killings. We know that there are syndicates going around kidnapping babies and people, and all the kind of stupid shit that the witch doctors tell the general populace. And for us growing up there, it's part of the norm. It's we're used to it. It is so far removed from the frame of reality that of people here in the States, that if you tell them this, I've literally had people go, "You're lying." I've had one guy say, "Oh, you're just a racist and you want me to be a racist." So I told him, "Okay, hold that thought, you prick. Grab my phone," because unfortunately, Google is a regurgitation engine. It's not a search engine; it's a regurgitation. So you have to type in the right terminology to find certain things. So to find articles from South Africa, they're gonna refer to witch doctors as sangomas. So you have to type in the term sangoma and muti killings and all that kind of stuff. So I pull it up on Google, and I'm like, look, you see that picture of a baby chopped up to pieces in a bloody pan? That is what we're dealing with in Africa. So you just saying, "Oh, I want you to be racist," is infuriating, and it shows your absolute stupidity. A lot of dumb people.
No, I think it's good to go down rabbit hole. It's good to learn and become uncomfortable and learning something different that you never would have done. And I think more people should do this.
But they do this
but to
within their
start with
bubble.
start with Israel, because there's too much fucking disinformation, and you need to grow the fuck up and realize, just the technology that they've given the world. These laptops that we use, people must actually Google the what's it, the top 10 technologies that have been brought from Israel, and they don't keep it for themselves. They give it to the world. Medical technology, technology.
Kind of
Yes,
a
they make
little bit.
money.
You're not wrong, but it's kind of off of the topic when it comes to, because the hot topic is the occupation of land. So if the hot topic is occupation of land, go and Google how many times Israel has come to the forefront and said, "Look, we'll give everything. Just stop trying and kill our civilians." And every single time they go, "No." So you're not wrong with the left, but that's like a little bit. That's like of a side note. The topic of today at hand, and what is always in the media is the poor Palestinians. But dude, there are videos of. And in the States, it's very polarized. The Republicans and the Democrats and da 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 da. And the Republicans kind of tend to support Israel more so than the Democrats, because the Democrats a bunch of lefties. But the Democrats love Hillary Clinton, and you can find so many clips of Hillary Clinton going, "Look, these people indoctrinate their kids just to," and you can find this online. It's on YouTube, where she's standing on a podium and go, "Look, the Palestinians do X, Y, Z, da, ba, ba. This is the curriculum that they teach their kids. This is not okay." Now I'm slaughtering exactly what she said, but I actually want people to go and listen because again, any Democrats that come across this online, you love Hillary, go and look what she said. Don't take it from me. I'm just some schmuck, that's living in Tennessee. You don't have to take my word for it. But every single thing I say is Googleable. And that's also something that I've learned with people asking me about South Africa. You can't give opinions. You can't say, "Oh, I don't like it because of X, Y, and Z." You got to go, "Look, this is what happens." Show them the shit about the Sangomas. Show them shit about the Muti killing. Show them the stuff about all the corruption. Show them the stuff about crime. Show them how incompetent the government is. So it has to be Googleable. So Google that.
Okay. All right. Well, Lloyd, Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And we've just we've just cut a sliver of the cake. I know there's like a worldly geyser of information in that mind of yours. And we will definitely have you back. And I'm sure other people also have you back on their shows. But yeah, have a lovely afternoon. And I know what's it now, 3 o'clock there? 3:30?
Yeah, 10 to 4.
10 to 4 in the afternoon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cheers everybody for watching. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Titi Fan. Bye.
So yeah.
Hold on.